I'm Justin Brady, and how do you AI? Yeah, I know that sounds silly, but there's a purpose. AI is obviously disrupting everything. It's in every page. It's in every book now. But most observations about it are completely wrong, in my opinion, and in the opinion of today's guest, the author of How to AI, columnist of Wall Street Journal's Keywords, and of course, one of the co-hosts of Wall Street Journal's Bold Names, Christopher Mims. Thank you for coming on the show.
Justin, very excited to get to talk to you for however long we have here. It's a pleasure.
Only 5 hours.
Are we Joe Roganing this?
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Toil. This is a word that comes up. I like to say humans inspire, AI perspires. I love how you talk about AI and its true role in our organizations. Some people think like AI is a fad. Believe it or not, there are some people who think that. Some other people think that AI is just going to disrupt everything. We're not going to work. Of course, you and I think, are aligned on this, that both of that is complete crap. Like neither one of those are even remotely true. But talk to me a little bit about toil, not replacement.
Yeah, toil is, the work that we don't want to do and which people are getting smarter and smarter at doing with AI. And that, so in that scenario, AI is a supplement to our abilities. And that contrasts with, some of the kind of hype that's happened over the past couple of years where it's like, I'm going to hire a bunch of AIs instead of people. Or you've even had CEOs, infamously the head of Klarna was like, we laid off all these people and we're just going to replace them with AIs. And that, that hasn't worked out. As Elon Musk famously said when he kind of accidentally on purpose over automated Tesla's original production line and then had to walk it back. He said, and I quote, humans are overrated. Or sorry, that's probably what he would say now. At the time he said humans are underrated. But I think as we see knowledge work get automated, the lessons from robotics and automation in blue collar work, in logistics and in manufacturing still apply, right? This can enhance what humans do. In the long run, it will fundamentally transform what jobs we're doing. But, it is a supplement to our abilities. And in the short term, we really can use it to take on a lot of toil. And there's some great recent examples of that where you see the major AI labs leaning into that and frankly doing things where, I'm feeling pretty happy. People have said, how could you write a book on an area that's changing so quickly? And, I tried to write a book that was about where, I was going to skate to where the puck is going to be. And so there's a lot of stuff in my book, How to AI, which I think, frankly, kind of predicted where we are now with a lot of the tools that are available. And of course, the book hasn't even come out yet. So it's funny to say it predicted what's coming. But anyway, I think I've got at least a year that the book is still relevant.
Yeah. No, I've read it, and hopefully it's, like you said, hopefully it's still relevant when it comes out. It comes out in like a month or maybe a week.
It comes out January 27th.
Right. Okay, cool. So we're recording this January 19th. For those that don't know, some podcasts are recorded ahead of time. You mentioned in the book a lot, and you just mentioned it now, that it's humans with AI are going to do a lot. They're going to get further. Humans with AI are going to be unmatched, like superpowered teams. But AIs by themselves, if left alone, at least now and in the foreseeable future, probably not the best situation.
Yeah. So there are very basic tasks which you can fully outsource to AI now. I mean, my favorite example of this is people don't realize how many millions of invoices are processed every day, and every invoice, is in a different format. And, no matter how good your OCR is, doing the accounting exercise of reconciling what's on that invoice with your books, up to now has taken just enormous amounts of back office labor, some of which has already been outsourced. That is something that you can basically fully automate, except for some of the exception handling, with AI today, right? There are companies that you can go to, that's all they do. And so that's a great example of, like, at the low end, yes, absolutely. There are things that AI can fully replace, kind of low, very low level human knowledge workers. you move up the sort of the stack of skills, and it's a very different situation. AI makes people more productive, which is, of course, how in the short term it is hurting the job market, especially for entry level folks. Like I am hearing, this isn't just like articles that we're reading. I mean, I'm hearing this firsthand from people who are telling me, we are not hiring entry level workers anymore. We are not hiring interns. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a piece of reporting that I'm working on. So I don't want to reveal too much, but like I'm hearing this more and more, and it does frighten me. But the mechanism is not that AI replaces humans. It's that it makes existing people more productive. So one of the things I talk about in the book is, AI for like sales teams, for example. And there are a handful of tools now that, they record every single sales call that the people in your organization make, and then they give people feedback about what's working and what's not. And, I have been told by folks that those make their existing salespeople enough more productive, and this is measured, of course, in terms of like how much sales they're actually making, that they're like, we're growing, but we're not going to hire any more salespeople.
Sure. Because it allows people to be,
because of the AI dividend.
Right. It allows the existing people to be a lot more productive.
Yeah. And of course you see this in coding massively now.
Sure.
I mean,
absolutely.
Tremendous in coding right now.
Yeah, absolutely. There is like an element to your book. This is a pattern that AI, because I want to talk about job disruption, because this is the number one topic usually when AI comes up, is everyone's all their jobs are going to go away and robots are going to do all the jobs. And then of course, when you ask anybody about their job, well, can a robot do your job? Oh no, it's far too nuanced. Oh, it's like, which I think is an interesting reaction, because people know their jobs pretty well. We don't know what goes into other people's jobs that well. So, and I want to talk to you about your own job being disrupted by AI. You talk about that in the book. But before we get there, one of the patterns is that AI, organizations that embrace it tend to create more value in the organization that really didn't exist without AI. And so would that also apply to jobs? Will we be seeing AI create a whole bunch of human jobs that we couldn't have foreseen will exist?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing about AI. It's both very much like every technological revolution that has come before, and then in some important and nuanced ways, very different. So the way that it's like every technological revolution that has come before is, take the automobile, right? The automobile, disemployed all of the world's buggy whip makers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't great for farriers, right? Which is the term for the person who makes horseshoes and puts them on the horses, right? It wasn't great for animal husbandry and that kind of thing. But obviously, at the dawn of the age of the automobile, nobody could imagine that, in like 2-3 generations, their offspring would be, web developers or, making apps or a million other things, SEO specialists.
Right.
So that's just the nature of technological shifts. There are disruptions, right? Like the Luddites weren't wrong, right? Like the automated mills were taking away their living. It was tremendously disruptive for them. The way that AI is different is that it is in some ways moving more quickly than past technological revolutions. And then also it's the first general purpose technology that can teach you how to use it, right?
Oh,
so,
interesting.
Right? That's an Ethan Mollick insight.
Good point.
Ethan Mollick, right, who wrote Co-Intelligence, excellent book. Everybody should subscribe to his Substack if you have a high tolerance for long disquisitions on the latest papers on productivity, which I do. I love it. I eat it up every day, every time he publishes. But yeah, like you can literally ask AI, like, okay, well, what are some good uses for you? Or we've also all had the experience of going beyond like 1 or 2 questions back and forth, and it starts to reveal its abilities to us, which of course are constantly expanding. And we can get more into depth than that, but anybody who's played with it for more than a half hour knows this.
Yeah. One of the really interesting examples of this that you talk about Clorox and some of the ways that they're using AI, which most people are probably like, a cleaning company, they're using AI? You talk about a toilet bomb or something. What's very interesting, though, I think their biggest use case that actually proves this out on how AI will add more jobs, not take away jobs, is how they're using AI to predict and model future buying behavior so that they can sell more stuff and get more stuff on shelves, whereas beforehand, they didn't really have a good technology to do that thing.
Yeah. So here we have to distinguish between generative and non-generative AI, which I think is the terminology we're starting to settle on now. So generative AI is kind of just everything that came after the ChatGPT moment, November 2022, when it, came out and shook the world and everything. And then, of course, also the other type of models, which are different, the diffusion models that do image and video generation and are disrupting marketing and Hollywood now. And it's kind of just a coincidence that those both came out at the same time, but that really baked everybody's noodles. But anyway, Clorox is using, pre-generative AI, non-generative AI to really help them with their production and logistics planning, which is something that like every company that has to manufacture stuff has to do. So they have to incorporate, predictions about demand with, knowledge about their ability to supply that demand. And, typically this is an annual or a semi-annual or even a quarterly process that companies go through where they try to match up all these different variables and make sure that they're making the right amount of stuff and they deliver it to the right place so that there isn't excess that wipes out their margins, et cetera. They have shifted to something that uses deep learning, where traditionally companies were not using that to help them with demand prediction. And I think one of the reasons that Clorox did this is they have really been on a roller coaster ride. They were huge during the pandemic. Everybody's like, let's buy Clorox wipes, because we're worried about cleaning every surface and our groceries and everything else. And then like demand fell off a cliff and their stock price crashed, and so they kind of learned a bitter lesson from that. And now they're like, we need to be really good at demand prediction. We need to be among the best. And, lots of folks are doing that. And I think it's a great example of how the vogue for generative AI, which makes AI accessible to all of us, has kind of created a lane for the folks kind of in the back to use every other kind of AI in other types of like human endeavor, like planning for logistics, for example.
Yeah, logistics and the planning and logistics are fascinating. But then I also want to, as far as careers, I also want to flip this and look at it the other way, which is industries that may reject AI and may not want to be disruptive, may not want to embrace new technology, and will not get the benefits of what like Clorox is doing. You kind of cite an industry that may fall into this trap, and that would be construction. With advances in technology, you'd think construction, with modeling and sophisticated technology, you'd think construction would be more efficient, but it's actually less efficient now than it was before. It hasn't embraced technology like it should. And I do wonder, you don't indicate this in your book, I'm not putting words in your mouth at all, but I do wonder if their failure to embrace technology, is that one of the reasons they can't fill jobs? And so does an industry's rejection of AI, is that kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy? Like if you don't adapt, if you don't embrace AI, you are going to be the one that has your jobs displaced.
Yes.
It's a big question.
Yeah, I mean,
tell us with your crystal ball.
Yeah, I mean, here's just to take a step back, and then we'll talk specifically about construction. I think the thing that I had a strong sense of when I was writing the book, but now I have a very strong conviction about, was if you don't embrace AI, ultimately, somebody who does is going to displace you. They're going to take your job. Not directly, okay? That's not how economies work. But the firm that you work at, for example, might fail because they have not taken advantage of the productivity gains that AI allows. And so they're going to be outcompeted by a firm that does. And that is the way in which somebody who uses AI is going to take your job. I think that's really, really important. And I think that like it's not a very happy or feel good message, but it is something that I personally feel a great deal of urgency about spreading. And I think it's one of the sort of core messages of the book. Like, this is how you kind of begin to adopt the mindset so you can begin to use these tools. And the good news is it doesn't take a lot, right? There are fairly big productivity gains to be achieved with fairly small tweaks to like how you use AI in your day-to-day work life. And frankly, we are still at the early adopter stage. Like, we're not at the part of the adoption curve where it's like the early majority or certainly not the late majority. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. That's the good news. But construction is a great example of industries where it has been extremely difficult, not just AI, but really since the 1970s, which is when productivity in construction started to go down. It's been an industry where it's extremely difficult to adopt automation or even digitization, and not for lack of trying, right? Like, we've had multiple big startups fail that were like, we're going to just make buildings or parts of buildings in factories, and prefab's going to be the solution. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of other, challenges here. Like, it's a very over-regulated industry. If you ever want to go down an internet rabbit hole,
that's a good point.
Just look on YouTube about like why elevators cost 4 times as much in North America as they do in Europe. Like, when you are done going down that rabbit hole, you will be like, I don't care where you are on the political spectrum, you'll be like, I want to torch every single one of these regulations, because the end result is something that was designed to make buildings more accessible to people in wheelchairs has had the opposite effect, and now we have fewer buildings with wheelchairs. So it's an industry that has a lot of problems, and I think one of the reasons that I highlighted it is that AI has this ability to allow industries which previously could not digitize at the same rate as other industries to take advantage of potential productivity gains, because AI makes different types of digitization so much more accessible. Two other great examples are medicine and the law, where because AI provides this very friendly interface, you can have a conversation with it, or it can be built into existing tools that you're already using. Suddenly you can do things that before would have required, a huge team of coders. And then you would have had this enormous technical debt that you would have to maintain forever to keep the system from breaking. And there's so many of these kind of little niches, some of which turn out to be gigantic, that AI is helping industries achieve productivity gains that they just couldn't before. And ultimately, when you look at what they're doing, you're like, well, that's just software. And it's like, yeah, but now you can build that software and not have to be a technical person, or you can interact with this system and not have to be a technical person, or a handful of engineers can build a system that previously would have taken a huge team of them.
Yeah, I like that you bring up law. That's actually a really good example. I'd love to get your pushback or acknowledgement or reaction to this, but law is right now, I think most would probably argue, in most cases, unaffordable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like if something happens to you, it's very expensive to defend yourself and get a lawyer. It's very expensive. And a lot of that is, if you peel back the onion with my very limited understanding of law from my, Suits watching, is paralegals and a lot of really hard work digging through case law, a lot of stuff like that, a lot of hours. And so I do wonder if very soon law will be one of those things that is incredibly accessible to everybody. You get sued by a giant corporation that has 20 lawyers, and you hire a small firm in Boise, Idaho that has one lawyer, maybe two, and you can defend yourself because they have AI that can sift through all that case law, saving them thousands of hours. Are we going to see, law is one of the great examples, are we going to see actually way more demand for legal services because the cost of those are going to come way down?
Yes. Great question. The answer to what you said is 100% yes. This is happening now. And it is a trend that is going to accelerate. So let me just paraphrase the CEO of LexisNexis, who I interviewed the other day. This fact really boggled my mind. So LexisNexis, of course, for those who don't know, since forever has been, the way that lawyers research case law, right? So I mean, this has been around so long. my own mother, who was a patent lawyer a million years ago.
Oh,
I'll never forget, she was like so proud when she got trained on it. And so like there she was like sitting in front of the system. Remember those monitors where the text was green? It's like the Matrix. Those are old Hercules monitors where it's black and white, but it's green and black.
It's like when Oregon Trail was cool, when it was on those monitors.
This is like the Oregon Trail level of that technology. So lawyers would sit there just punching in. They would have to learn this weird syntax, and they would be punching in different keywords because the only type of search you could do was keyword search. And that was the genesis of LexisNexis, right, as a digital product. Today, this thing, which has always been for legal research, has always been your paralegals just sitting there all day long researching the relevant case law for your whatever suit you're doing. Now, the CEO of LexisNexis told me lawyers are using their system more to draft documents than they are for legal research. And that is a change that has happened in the past 12 months. So what's going on, right? You go in, and where before you do the research, and then this is the nature of knowledge work, which AI is disrupting, as another observer recently put it, most knowledge work, it's like inputs in, documents out, right? That's what lawyers and paralegals are doing. So they would read all the case law, they would integrate that with their experience in this area of law, and then they would generate documents. Well, now, LexisNexis is helping them generate this. And because it is grounded in their database of actual case law, it's not able to hallucinate. Or if there is anything where you're like, is that real? You can like click on the case. In other words, it won't cite a case that doesn't actually exist in its database. So this whole problem that people have had of like ChatGPT generating, briefs for the court, and then the lawyers get sanctioned, sometimes fined because ChatGPT made up some case law. It can't do that, right? It's grounded. Right. And so exactly what you just said, right? So you're a sole practitioner in Boise or whatever, and you're handling, any kind of law. Could be corporate law, could be contracts, could be labor disputes, could be wills. Think about how many people have not done, I bet like 20% of people who need to actually do it, a proper will or estate planning have done it, right? Because it's not estate planning sounds like you're rich. It's like, no, like you die and like your kids have to, sell your house or something. It's a nightmare. Yep. All of that you would want a lawyer to take care of. Very few people have done it. It's a terrible mess then when people pass on. That kind of thing is being not automated, but partly automated by these systems. So you are a lawyer in Boise, you know the law in your state, you know what the needs of your client are because you've done the client-facing thing that only a human can do still for now. But you're using LexisNexis to help you draft that document, and think about how much faster it makes you. Absolutely, you can start to help more people. And what you see then, as any economist would guess, is the cost of that particular service goes down. So it becomes more accessible.
Yep. And you mentioned in the book someone who is actually, you mentioned another example too of someone who's using it to like transcribe and note catch and do depositions, because then there's like I don't know if like I can't remember how you describe this, but basically their AI will tell them if someone answered a question. I'm not a lawyer, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting problem I didn't even know existed. Apparently in a deposition, like people will try to avoid answering the question, and sometimes they're pretty good at it. And so this will tell this lawyer that they did answer the question. It'll check that box, or no, they haven't answered that yet. And this lawyer's like, oh gosh, I thought they had. I totally almost got hoodwinked. So absolutely fascinating. But I want to switch gears a little bit because obviously the law is one thing, but you mentioned Hollywood earlier. And you mentioned one example of a illustrator, I think, that is like kind of losing a few jobs to AI. And on one hand, I think it's cool. On the other hand, I think it might be a recipe for disaster for Hollywood. And I don't know the answer here, but AI, in my idiot explanation, I always tell people it's like an incredibly amazing copy-paste tool. It can't, and this will lead into your job too, and why your job is, at least for now, AI-proof. But are we going to start to see, if people are concepting and creating art for Hollywood movies using AI, aren't all Hollywood movies eventually just going to start being the same storylines and the same plot, and we're going to have, I would argue already, we have not that much creativity in Hollywood, and maybe if they start relying on AI, it's going to get a lot worse, or am I missing something?
Yeah, 3 data points on this. One of the current experts on this, believe it or not, is Ben Affleck. He's been giving some great interviews.
I've heard about this. I need to listen to those interviews. I've heard he is blowing people's minds.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy. And, he's observed that, ChatGPT is not a good writer, but he's like, imagine, you're constructing a plot and you need a particular plot device. You're like, okay, we need something like, why would somebody send a message, but it gets delayed and somebody else only receives it like 2 days later. And you can just go into, your LLM of choice and start to have that conversation. It's like, oh, well, what about this or whatever. So it can be an assistant for you, right? In those respects. It's truly not a good writer, right? Because it is going to tend toward the mean of what everybody else has created, which is stuff that already exists. And that's just not what, you think of like a really out there but amazing movie, that
Inception or something.
Yeah, Inception or DiCaprio's latest, which is just such an insane film. It's good because there's nothing like it, okay? Everybody should go see that film now with their kids because it's crazy. But AI is never going to create that, right?
I agree.
AI is really great at creating things that have already existed. That's why it's great at vibe coding. Because if you ask it, like, hey, create me like a podcast client. Well, guess what? There's 1 million podcast clients in its library. So that's data point number 1 about what this is doing to Hollywood. Data point number 2 is it is already being used in full production to create things that otherwise they couldn't. A great example is recently there's a hit series on Amazon about one of the angels. I don't know. It's like a biblical series. It's been a huge hit, it turns out. There are scenes in it where they're trying to depict the genesis of the giant Goliath from the famous David and Goliath story. Mm-hmm. And like, I didn't know this, but he has this crazy like mythical thing, fallen angel storyline or whatever. And the director of that used generative AI to create these insane scenes where there's like angels and these huge expanses. And, for a show that's just like, episodic show that's going to appear on Amazon, he said, this allowed me to be more ambitious with those scenes than I would have otherwise. Now, is the rest of the show generated by AI? No, it's just regular people, talking to each other with cameras right there on their faces. So you can see how it's already supplementing in areas where, we're already pretty used to like CGI and, AI can do that. So is that going to eat more of that kind of stuff that's going to appear in episodic shows at least, and eventually movies? Probably. And then, the third thing that I would say about what's happening in Hollywood is it just demonstrates this tension between short-term job loss and then long-term productivity gains. So in the short term, I talk to like concept artists who are losing their jobs because people are just like, let's just use an AI image generator to come up with concept art. It's never going to appear in the final production, but let's just get some ideas from it. And that's going to, move up the value chain. It's already starting to appear in final production stuff. And in the long run, what people in Hollywood say is, well, this will actually empower a whole new generation of creators. Because imagine if you could be a writer or you are an indie director just starting out, and suddenly you don't have to have this huge CGI budget for your short or your movie or whatever that you're going to do. Wouldn't that be great? So, the X factor is we all have limited attention spans, but they could get redirected. I mean, the thing that frightens me a little bit, somebody said to me recently, somebody very smart said to me, I really love, I can't remember what franchise it was. Let's just say it's Star Wars, okay? Because Disney recently did a deal with OpenAI, which makes me think this could happen. And they were like, when I'm just like putting on a show in the background and not really paying attention, I would be totally happy if generative AI was just endlessly coughing up more stories about the characters that I already care about, because I'm half paying attention anyway. And like, to me, that's chilling because it's like a complete removal of the human from the productivity process. And I imagine a future in which people are just like endlessly consuming AI slop and loving it. I hope we don't get there. But this is the thing about, it's like any new technology, it's like, like splitting the atom's the best possible example. It's like, on the one hand, it's like, cool, carbon-free energy forever. And maybe suddenly, someday, this is how we get to the stars, because it's the heart of like a new type of rocket engine, which is a real thing that's happening, by the way. Nuclear-powered rockets are coming. Or we wipe out all of humanity, right? It's just like AI's on that level.
Yeah, it's a balance. And it's like, it seems like you talk about this in the book. It's a balance. The people who use it as a tool are probably going to be the winners, and the people who get used are the tools. I mean, so it's something and I already see examples of people, people I know that are kind of over relying on it and just like completely blindly trusting it, and doing this hard human work that has been done by critical thinking, creative people. And then they hand it off to AI and say, what do you think about this, AI? And they come back to their team and say, AI says this. And I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? Like, I already see this happening. I want to end on maybe a few things about how AI may make us actually more human, but if we have the time. But you talk about why, at least right now, your job is probably not going to be disrupted by AI. I mean, it can't be now. Maybe in the future, who knows? I don't think so. But I want you to talk about that as a final note. Yeah.
So I have said, and this is since the earliest days of being a journalist, because I really started during the early days of, I'm going to date myself now, but like, the web disrupting print, right? Like when I first started, like, a blog was called a weblog. Now kids don't even know what a blog is. I was like, kids, you know what a blog is? And they were like, is that like a vlog? And I was like, no, okay, forget it.
Wow.
But since the earliest days of this, I've always said my job is to uncover information that's not on the internet and put it on the internet. Obviously, an LLM cannot, no matter how smart it is or how many deep research tools it has access to, it doesn't have access to the real world, and it's not going to convince anybody to pick up the phone and have a conversation with it yet. So that is the sort of fundamental reason why journalists, at least journalists like me and investigative journalists, are not going to be replaced by AI. Now, is it a potential productivity booster? Yes. I use deep research tools all the time. They're incredibly good at helping me drill down very quickly to, find out even very obscure things, as long as the information's public and already on the internet.
Right.
Help me find sources. And I use them in innumerable other ways. I mean, I used to sit at my computer doing interviews, taking notes. Now I literally just plug in my earbuds and go for a walk, because the meeting's getting recorded and I am going to get that full transcript later. And I don't even need to read the full transcript anymore, because latent in my memory is like, oh, didn't that person say something about this idea? And I just ask the chatbot, hey, where in this transcript did this person talk about this, or what were all of the things they said about this concept, and it'll pull it from 3 or 4 different places in the interview. So it has completely transformed the way that I interact with even the data that I am extracting from other people's brains. And frankly, it's just made my life a lot better, because I'm not sitting at my desk all the time anymore. AI has freed me to be what in the parlance is called a deskless worker.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was hoping we could end on, which is I've been kind of thinking about this a lot as like, will AI be able to make us more human? And the one example I was thinking of is like cars. Some Teslas now, you can actually talk to the car. It'll do destinations for you and it'll plan routes for you. That's one example. But I love your example so much, which is that you are just taking a walk through nature and talking to people, because AI empowered you to do this thing. And before, you were stuck kind of dividing your attention between the person you're interviewing and essentially hammering out as many notes as possible to try to capture everything. Does that concept scale? Does AI start to remove the friction of technology, because it's kind of working in the background on our behalf, and we can go breathe some oxygen, or as the kids say, touch grass?
Yeah. I mean, let's just like paint a picture of the not too distant future, because we're getting there. Okay. The hardware is there. There's, I I just saw today, there's like this little ring that has a microphone on it, and you use it to talk to your AI, which is in your phone and in your earbuds, or obviously Meta's trying to do it, and Apple and Google and everyone with smart glasses. But I think that like, let's just like paint a picture of like Jane Doe's day in the future, because I think this is going to be really illustrative. So she wakes up, and hopefully like all of her devices are nowhere around here. Like I don't want us to be plugged in all the time. I don't want brain implants. I hope people don't volunteer for that. But okay, you wake up, brush your teeth, have a shower. You're not checking your feeds, I hope, for your own mental health. Then you start to like put on your devices. You start to become a cyborg, right? You put on your smart glasses, you put in your earbuds, you put on your little ring or your watch, or you get out your phone. And now you're equipped to talk to the on-device AI and, of course, talk to the AI in the cloud. And, your assistant's like, hey, good morning. Here's what's on your schedule today. And you're like, cool. Oh, I have that 10:30. Let me move that. And it just does it for you, okay? We're not that far off. Google's getting a lot better at this with their personal intelligence, which they just released last week. Claude is getting great at it on device. Anthropic's getting good at it on device. OpenAI is going to have to match, feature for feature. Microsoft's going to try. We'll see how far they get. And throughout your day, you're going to have this assistant, which sometimes unprompted is going to be literally in your ear, like, hey, what about this? Or you're going to activate it and you're going to be like, add this to my shopping list, add a reminder to do this. I need to do, I need to make an appointment for my dog to get, go to the vet or get groomed or whatever. Can you take care of that for me and let me know when it's done? And so this, Spike Jonze in the movie Her, this assistant that is in your ear and is always accessible and is being judicious in how it commands your attention, I think that is going to be absolutely ubiquitous. It will be the dominant way that we interact with our devices. So I agree with you. There's a lot of potential bad outcomes coming, but we do have the potential to return to our own humanity. I think this is going to sound crazy, but I think like people are going to read and write less, but it'll be good. We are fundamentally,
Really?
Oh yeah. So we are going to return to an oral culture. It's happening already. I mean, the bad side is if you look at all the numbers, kids are less literate than they used to be. They have trouble reading books and stuff like this because they're just like scrolling TikTok or whatever. But I think that we are going to have more conversations. We're going to have more conversational interfaces. We are going to type less. We'll still read because there's no better way to think than to write. And there is no better way to be thoughtful
Totally agree.
than to read deeply. But those things will be more of a choice. And so all of this endless, like, I got to look at my phone. I'm going to look at my calendar over here. I got to read this email. Potentially, all of that becomes something that is more respectful of our intention, which is delivered orally. Because, of course, the bit rate for speech is really high. As long as you have a system that is above 95% accuracy in transcribing it, which we're now at, and which can truly understand and has that error correction mechanism, which is like, oh, you said you want to accomplish XYZ. Is this actually what you want? And you're like, no, tweak this. Yes. And can function like a real human assistant. I mean, I really think we're going to get to a place where every single one of us is going to have a full-time dedicated assistant that we feel we can't live without.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's so many, when you start doing the mental math, so much of your day that you find irritating is the toil stuff, is the filling out the forms, is the repeating the same stupid process and pattern over and over again, is that scheduling that thing. Like so much of it is that. And so in my mind, I'm like, man, I feel like AI is going to be a net good. I feel like people will be able to live out their human purpose as toil, love it, gets replaced. But maybe I don't know for sure. Maybe I'm the crazy one. But after reading your book, How to AI, I actually feel a lot better about the future. Christopher Mims, columnist of Wall Street Journal's Keywords, host of Bold Names, which you should all subscribe to, and of course the author of How to AI, which is out very, very soon. Christopher, what is the URL, the website, the easiest way to find you to buy the book?
Yeah, I think probably the easiest way to find me is just like search for How to AI, Christopher Mims, and a bunch will pop up because I have a newsletter. I've got videos I'm doing all over the place. It's I'm doing kind of like daily videos on LinkedIn and Instagram and everywhere else. So just search for, How to AI Christopher Mims, and a bunch of stuff will pop up. And it'll really give you a flavor for kind of like what the book is about. And, I really, truly, I mean, I know I'm biased, but I really, truly tried to write something that will give you general principles and will stand the test of time. Like if AI has like a Das Kapital, like I'm hoping this is it.
Yeah, I will say, like, one of the things I like about it is just it's very, there's narrative and story, but it's also very practical. You're like, here are a bunch of terms that people are using. So if someone is like knows a lot about AI and the engineering side, they're going to learn story and application. If someone kind of knows story and application, they're going to learn the technical side. So it's a pretty good book. And I do suggest everybody read it. I've of course read it. Thanks for sending the PDF ahead of time. Christopher Mims, author of How to AI. Thanks for coming on the show.
Justin, thanks so much for having me.